The emergency klaxon's piercing wail cut through the artificial night cycle of Station Kepler-7, bathing the corridors in pulsing crimson light. Security Officer Zekthar's forearms moved with practiced precision across his tactical console, his chitinous carapace gleaming under the alert strobes. Command, this is Security Station Delta. Confirmed Deathworlder breach in Sector 7, Barracks Level C. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a Velkari stress response he'd trained himself to suppress in crisis situations. Tonight, it slipped through. The response crackled back immediately. Delta, this is Command. Threat assessment. Zekthar's secondary arms pulled up the containment protocols while his primaries coordinated team positions. Single entity, humanoid classification, currently mobile in residential corridors, initiating Standard Containment Protocol 7. Acknowledged, medical standing by. Through his tactical display, Zekthar watched the convergence patterns as security teams moved into position. 3 squads, 47 beings total, all equipped with Grade 5 containment gear. The corridors of Sector 7 appeared on his screen as a 3-dimensional maze of potential escape routes, each one systematically blocked by his teams. Squad Leader Hisara, report your position. The medical officer's voice came through steady despite the circumstances. Approaching from maintenance level. Bioscanners are interesting. The readings don't match our database parameters. Clarify interesting. A pause. The stress hormones we'd expect from a cornered predator. They're absent. Cardiovascular function suggests moderate physical activity, like it's taking an evening stroll. Zekthar's lower left arm tapped against his carapace, another tell he couldn't quite eliminate. Standard protocols were clear. Deathworlders in confined spaces exhibited predictable behavioral patterns, elevated aggression, territorial defense mechanisms, enhanced threat assessment. This one was reading like it was window shopping. Maintain distance. Do not engage until containment field is established. Understood. The tactical display showed all teams in position. Sector 7's Barracks Level C was effectively sealed, a maze of corridors designed for residential habitation, now transformed into a containment zone. Energy barriers hummed to life at each intersection, creating an electromagnetic cage that could hold a rampaging thoraxian battle beast. All units, this is Delta Command. Target is contained in grid reference 77 Charlie. Deploying primary containment field in 3, 2, 1. The containment field materialized across the corridor intersection, a shimmering barrier of contained plasma designed to stop anything short of a heavy assault vehicle. Through his remote sensors, Zekthar watched the target's approach. She was smaller than he'd expected. The database had listed her species, human, designation, Terran, as averaging 1.7 meters in height. This specimen matched the parameters, but something about the proportions seemed wrong. Too compact, too efficient, like a weapon designed to look harmless. She wore the standard-issue gray maintenance coveralls of the station's support staff, her dark hair pulled back in what his cultural database identified as a ponytail, apparently a human grooming practice. Her skin tone suggested genetic heritage from Earth's equatorial regions, and she moved with the kind of fluid economy that spoke of extensive physical training. She rounded the corner and stopped in front of the containment field, tilting her head slightly to one side. "Is there a drill happening?" she called out, her voice carrying clearly through the energy barrier. "Because I really need to get some sleep. Kitchen duty starts at 0430, and I've got 3,000 hungry beings to feed by 0600. Zekthar's mandibles clicked involuntarily. The Deathworlder was talking, calmly, about meal preparation. Squad leaders, report readiness. Sonic dampeners online. Energy nets deployed. Medical containment standing by. Gravity restraint field at full power. Zekthar's primary hands moved across the controls. Target, you are in violation of station security protocols. Submit to containment procedures for processing. Through the remote sensors, he watched her expression shift from confusion to mild annoyance. Look, I just got off a 14-hour shift in the kitchen. Can we do this tomorrow? I've got to prep breakfast service, and if the Thoraxian delegates don't get their protein paste at exactly the right temperature, they file formal complaints. She took a step forward, approaching the containment field. Target, halt. Do not approach the barrier. But she was already moving, and what happened next would require Zekthar to file a report that his superiors would initially refuse to believe. She stepped through the containment field. Not around it. Not under it. Through it. Like it was made of colored light instead of contained plasma capable of stopping a charging Durante ram beast. The field flickered, sparked, and stabilized around her as if she were a minor electromagnetic anomaly. Huh, she said, pausing to look back at the barrier. That tingled. Reminds me of the time the industrial oven's shielding failed back on Titan base. We had to work through that for 3 days before the repair crew arrived. Every alarm in Zekthar's command station was now screaming. Containment breach. Field failure. System malfunction. His lower arms flew across the diagnostic panels while his upper arms activated secondary protocols. All units, containment failure. Repeat, primary containment has failed, activating backup measures. The corridor filled with a harmonic frequency designed to disorient most oxygen-breathing species, a sonic dampener set to maximum output. Through his sensors, Zekthar watched the target's reaction. She winced slightly and put a finger in one ear. Ear. Ow. Could you turn that down? It's like the extract fans when they need maintenance. The sonic dampener was rated to incapacitate a Velkari warrior in full combat armor. She was treating it like background noise. Target appears unaffected by sonic countermeasures, Hisara reported, her voice tight with professional concern. Deploying energy nets. The nets materialized around the target, strands of contained energy designed to tighten on contact, creating an inescapable web. Zekthar had seen them stop a panicked Centauran cave bear without causing permanent injury. The human looked down at the energy net settling around her shoulders and sighed. Really? I just want to get to my bunk. She shrugged, and the net parted like it was made of cobwebs. How did she? Hisara's voice cut off as her own instruments began registering impossible readings. Medical report. Her cellular cohesion is... It's registering beyond our measurement parameters. And her bone density. A pause. Command. I think our equipment is malfunctioning. These readings suggest skeletal structure that could support approximately 50 times her apparent body mass. Zekthar's world was beginning to tilt. Standard containment protocols weren't suggestions. They were based on centuries of xenobiological research. They worked on everything from the crystalline shardlings of Vega to the plasma-based entities of the Horsehead Nebula. They did not work on humans. Activating gravity restraint field, he announced, his voice carrying only the slightest tremor. The gravity field was their most powerful containment tool, capable of increasing local gravity by a factor of 20, enough to immobilize virtually any biological entity. The field engaged. Through his sensors, Zekthar watched the target's reaction. She stumbled slightly, then steadied herself. Whoa. Heavy day. Feels like working the dinner shift when the artificial gravity was fluctuating. We had to serve 1,200 Velkari diplomats during that Neptune station conference while the gravity kept shifting between 1.2 and 1.8 standard. She began walking forward again, each step deliberate but unhindered by the crushing gravitational field that should have pressed her flat against the deck plating. This is impossible. Zekthar whispered to himself, then keyed his comm. Command, this is Delta Security. We have a situation that requires immediate escalation. The response was swift. Delta, this is Commander Thrumok. Deploying heavy containment unit to your location. Maintain perimeter. Zekthar's relief was palpable. Commander Thrumok was old-school military, a veteran of 17 different contact scenarios. If anyone could handle an anomalous Deathworlder, it was him. Through his sensors, he watched the human examine a wall-mounted maintenance panel that had begun sparking under the stress of the multiple containment fields. "Oh, that's just a loose coupling," she said, reaching up to the panel. "Happens all the time in the kitchen when we run multiple heating units simultaneously." Her fingers moved with casual competence, adjusting something inside the panel. The sparking stopped, and the panel's indicator lights shifted from angry red to calm green. "Target has interfaced with station systems," Hisara reported, her voice climbing toward panic. "How did she access a secured maintenance panel?" The human looked puzzled. "Access? I just tightened the connection. The coupling was loose, you could hear it arcing from here." Zekthar stared at his instruments. The maintenance panel she'd just fixed was indeed operating more efficiently than it had in months. His engineering reports showed a 12% improvement in power distribution to the sector. "Command, how long until heavy containment arrives?" 2 minutes out." 2 minutes. Zekthar could maintain his perimeter for 2 minutes while his entire understanding of xenobiology crumbled around him. The human had resumed walking, approaching the next intersection where squad leader Hisara waited with her team. Through the tactical feed, Zekthar watched the medical officer's posture shift as the target came into direct visual range. "Command." Hisara's voice was steady but carried an undertone of deep unease. "I'm looking directly at the target. She's just walking. Like she's going home from work." "Maintain position." "Understood, but command. Her biosignature is completely stable. No elevated stress markers, no defensive posturing, no threat assessment behavior. According to my scanners, she's less agitated than most beings waiting for a transport shuttle." The human reached the intersection and paused, looking at the assembled security team with the same expression Zekthar had seen beings use when encountering unexpected construction work blocking their usual route. "Hi," she said, addressing Hisara directly. "I'm Sarah Martinez. I work in food services. Could I possibly squeeze past? I know this looks like some kind of security exercise, but I really do need to get some sleep." Hisara's medical training warred with her security protocols. You're not supposed to be able to move through our containment measures." Sarah looked back at the corridor she'd traversed, taking in the deactivated energy barriers and failed restraint fields. "Oh, those. Yeah, they reminded me of the safety systems we used during the emergency at Ceres Station. We had to keep the kitchens operational during a reactor leak, so we worked through all kinds of containment fields and emergency barriers." "A reactor leak." Hisara's voice climbed an octave. "Those are level 9 containment scenarios." "Yeah, it was a busy week. We had to serve 40,000 beings while the station was in emergency lockdown. The containment fields kept interfering with our food delivery routes, so we just learned to work around them." She paused, studying the assembled security team, with what appeared to be genuine concern. "Are you all okay? You look really stressed. Is there anything I can help with? I mean, I know I'm just food service, but sometimes these technical problems have simple solutions." Commander Thrumok's voice cut through the comm channel. "All units, heavy containment team has arrived. Stand by for deployment of Grade 9 restraint systems." Through the corridor intersection, Zekthar could see the heavy containment unit approaching, a full squad of engineers in powered armor, carrying equipment designed to restrain entities that conventional methods couldn't handle. At their center, Commander Thrumok's distinctive bulk moved with military precision. The Thoraxian commander was a veteran of contact scenarios spanning 3 decades, his carapace bearing the scars of encounters with everything from hive mind collectives to energy-based life forms. His approach to anomalous situations was methodical, thorough, and had never failed to achieve containment. "Target," his voice boomed through the corridor speakers. "You will submit to restraint protocols immediately." Sarah turned toward the approaching team, her expression shifting to mild curiosity. "More people? This really is a big drill. But honestly, could we maybe schedule these for day shift? Some of us have early mornings." Commander Thrumok's team deployed their equipment with practiced efficiency. Grade 9 restraint systems, gravitational anchors that could pin a spatial entity to local spacetime, molecular bonding fields that worked at the subatomic level, and neural dampeners designed to pacify aggressive psychic species. "Deploying full-spectrum containment," the commander announced. "Target will be immobilized in 3, 2, 1. The air around Sarah shimmered as multiple containment fields engaged simultaneously. The corridor itself groaned under the strain as gravitational forces bent space-time into a localized cage. Sarah swayed slightly, then steadied herself. "Okay, this is actually getting annoying. I get that you're doing your jobs, but I've got a really early morning." She looked around at the shimmering containment fields surrounding her, then down at the molecular bonding field, attempting to lock her feet to the deck plating. "You know what? This reminds me of the time the artificial gravity failed during a VIP banquet. We had to serve dinner while floating around in 0G, and half our equipment was malfunctioning." She lifted one foot, and the molecular bonding field sparked and failed. The trick was just to work with the equipment instead of fighting it. She began walking toward Commander Thrumok's position, passing through containment fields that bent around her like water around a stone. "Command," one of the engineers reported, his voice tight with disbelief. "Subject is advancing through Grade 9 containment. All systems showing active, but effectiveness at 0%. Commander Thrumok's scarred carapace gleamed in the emergency lighting as he watched Sarah approach. Decades of experience had taught him to recognize the moment when established protocols failed and adaptation became necessary. "Stand down containment systems," he ordered. "Sir?" "You heard me. Stand down." The containment fields dissipated and Sarah visibly relaxed. "Thank you. Those were giving me a headache." Commander Thrumok studied her with the calculating gaze of someone who had seen the impossible become routine. "You're the human assigned to food services." "That's right. Sarah Martinez. I run the night shift prep kitchen for the main dining facilities. The reports indicate you've been working here for 6 months without incident." "Well, yeah. It's a good job. Steady hours, interesting clientele, challenging logistics." She paused. "Is there some problem with my work? Because if the Centauran delegates are still complaining about their metabolic supplements, I can adjust the mineral balance again." The absurdity of the situation was beginning to dawn on Commander Thrumok. His most advanced containment systems, equipment designed to restrain entities that existed partially outside normal spacetime, had been defeated by a human who thought they were malfunctioning kitchen equipment. "The containment fields you just walked through," he said carefully, "are rated to hold a spatial anomaly." Sarah looked thoughtful. "Spatial anomaly? Like a dimensional rift?" "We had one of those in the freezer storage on Europa base. Really played havoc with the food preservation systems. Took us 3 weeks to figure out how to work around it." You worked around a dimensional rift. Had to. We were feeding 30,000 miners, and they get really cranky if the meal schedule gets disrupted. The rift kept destabilizing our cryo storage, so we just learned to time our prep work around the fluctuations. Commander Thrummock's worldview was undergoing rapid recalibration. The gravitational restraint field you just walked through generates localized forces equivalent to 50 standard gravities. Oh, that explains the heavy feeling. Yeah, we had something similar during the Jupiter orbital construction project. The artificial gravity kept fluctuating because of the massive construction mechs, so we learned to cook during gravity spikes. Actually made some interesting discoveries about how different ingredients behave under varying gravitational conditions. She brightened slightly, warming to the subject. Did you know that Velkari protein paste actually improves in texture when mixed under high gravity? We started timing our food prep to coincide with the construction schedule, and our customer satisfaction ratings went up 30%. Hisara approached cautiously, her medical scanner still registering impossible readings. Sarah, what's your background? Before this assignment? Military food service, mostly. I've been cooking for large installations for about 8 years, now. Started on Luna Base, then Titan Station, Europa Base, Ceres during the reactor incident, the Jupiter construction project, and now here. Each location she mentioned was a legendary assignment in military circles, postings known for their extreme conditions and high casualty rates. Luna Base had been built inside an active lava tube. Titan Station operated in a methane atmosphere that dissolved most conventional materials. Europa Base was constructed beneath 2 kilometers of radioactive ice. Those are all extreme environment postings, Commander Thrummock said slowly. Yeah, they tend to have the most interesting logistical challenges. Plus, the pay is better for hazard duty. She paused. Though honestly, this station is pretty cushy compared to some places I've worked. Stable environmental conditions, reliable power grid, good supply chain management. The Ceres reactor incident, Hisara said, her voice barely above a whisper. That's taught in our emergency management courses as an example of conditions where normal biological functions become impossible. Oh, that was a fun week. The radiation levels meant we had to prep all the meals in full environmental suits, and the containment fields kept interfering with our heating systems. Plus, we were on emergency rations, so I had to figure out how to make nutrient paste palatable for 40,000 beings with completely different dietary requirements. Sarah's casual tone suggested she was describing a mildly challenging weekend project, rather than circumstances that would have killed most known species within hours. The neural dampeners, Commander Thrummock continued, his voice taking on the quality of someone testing a theory he hoped was wrong. Those are designed to pacify aggressive psychic entities. Psychic entities? Like the ethereals from the Vega system? Yeah, we had a whole delegation of them during the trade conference on Titan. They kept trying to influence our food preparation telepathically, because they had very specific ideas about molecular gastronomy. We just learned to cook while maintaining mental barriers. You can resist psychic manipulation? Sarah looked confused. Well, you have to when you're working in a professional kitchen. Everybody's got opinions about food, and if you let every telepath who walks through the door start messing with your head, you'd never get anything done. The full scope of the situation was beginning to crystallize for Commander Thrummock. Every containment measure his team possessed had been designed based on decades of research into the limits of biological possibility. They represented the absolute pinnacle of what conventional physics suggested was achievable. Sarah Martinez treated them like minor workplace hazards. I need to ask you something directly, Commander Thrummock said, his voice carrying the weight of someone whose fundamental assumptions were dissolving in real time. Are you aware that by every measurement system we have available, what you just did should be impossible? Sarah's expression shifted to genuine puzzlement. Impossible? I just walked down a hallway. I mean, yeah, your equipment was acting up, but that's pretty normal in my experience. Most installations have technical problems that make things more difficult than they need to be. Our equipment was not malfunctioning. Then, Sarah paused, her brow furrowing as she worked through the implications. Are you saying all that stuff was supposed to stop me? Yes. But why? I'm just trying to get to my quarters. Because our protocols classify humans as Deathworlders requiring special containment procedures. Sarah stared at him for a long moment, then began to laugh. Not the maniacal laughter of someone on the edge of breakdown, but the genuine amusement of someone who had just understood a particularly absurd joke. You thought I was dangerous? I make soup for a living. You make soup, Commander Thrummock repeated slowly. For 40,000 beings at a time, in environments that would kill most species within minutes, while working around dimensional rifts and psychic interference. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds more dramatic than it really is. Sarah's amusement faded into something approaching sympathy. Look, I get that this is probably confusing from your perspective, but honestly, cooking for large groups is just logistics and time management. The environmental hazards are just variables you plan around. She gestured back at the corridor full of failed containment equipment. Like this evening. You've got security protocols that need to be followed. I've got meal prep that needs to be done. Both are just jobs that need to get finished. Our security protocols, Hisara said faintly, are based on containing entities that violate the known laws of physics. Physics is just another constraint to work around, like dietary restrictions or equipment limitations. Sarah checked something on her wrist, a standard chronometer that somehow hadn't been affected by any of the containment fields. Speaking of which, I really do need to get some sleep. Tomorrow's menu includes metabolic supplements for 17 different species, and the thoraxian protein paste alone takes 4 hours to prepare properly. Commander Thrummock found himself in the unprecedented position of having achieved complete tactical failure through complete tactical success. Every system had worked exactly as designed. The problem was that Sarah Martinez existed outside the parameters those systems had been designed to handle. You're telling me, he said carefully, that tomorrow you're going to prepare food for 17 different alien species, each with completely different metabolic requirements, in quantities sufficient to feed thousands of beings, and you consider this routine work? Well, yeah. It's Tuesday. Tuesdays are always multi-species days because that's when the diplomatic rotations happen. The silence that followed was the sound of several military careers' worth of expertise recalibrating themselves around a new reality. I think, Commander Thrummock said finally, we need to have a conversation with Command about our classification protocols. Okay, Sarah said agreeably. But could we maybe do that during normal business hours? Because I really do need to be up in 6 hours, and if I'm not properly rested, the breakfast service suffers. She started walking again, heading for her original destination with the same unhurried pace she'd maintained throughout the entire encounter. Oh, and if you're going to be revising your protocols, she called over her shoulder, you might want to talk to the other humans on station. There are 43 of us in various departments, and we're all pretty much the same. Though Jenkins in engineering might be a bit more dramatic about workplace hazards. He used to work the asteroid mining platforms. She paused at the next intersection, looking back with genuine concern. Also, you might want to get your equipment checked. Most of that stuff was running way outside normal parameters. I know a pretty good maintenance crew if you need recommendations. And with that, Sarah Martinez, Deathworlder and existential threat to established xenobiological theory, disappeared around the corner, heading for her quarters and 6 hours of sleep before her next shift, feeding the galaxy's most diverse collection of sentient beings. Commander Thrumok stood in the corridor, surrounded by the most advanced containment equipment known to galactic civilization, all of it functioning perfectly and all of it completely useless against someone whose primary concern was whether she'd have enough time to marinate the Centauran protein crystals properly. "Command," he said into his comm, his voice carrying the weight of someone whose entire worldview had just been gently but thoroughly demolished. "We need to talk." The response crackled back. "Thrumok, report status. Is the Deathworlder contained?" Commander Thrumok looked down the corridor where Sarah had disappeared, probably already asleep and dreaming about tomorrow's menu planning. "Negative, Command. The Deathworlder has returned to her quarters to prepare for breakfast service. And I think we need to completely revise our understanding of what contained means." In the distance, barely audible through the station's ventilation system, came the faint sound of Sarah Martinez setting her alarm clock, ready for another routine day of accomplishing the impossible, while wondering why everyone else made such a big deal about it. The galaxy, it seemed, was going to need bigger containment protocols, or possibly just better job classifications,